All right, well, welcome and hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Allison, and on behalf of the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, I am pleased to welcome you to the Ensuring a Resilient Event Business series. Today's module will focus on creating memorable social events and weddings, where we will learn the basics of wedding and social planning and how it relates to the modern day event professional. So once again, thank you so much for joining us here today. This series is intended to support small tourism and hospitality businesses looking to create, sustain, and grow their event management offerings. This six-part series is brought to you by the Center of Excellence for Hospitality Resilience, a joint initiative of Temple University's School of Sport, Tourism, and Hospitality Management and Temple's Small Business Development Center. Today's module is a 60-minute session with a 30-minute Q&A where you can ask questions via the chat box or by using the Q&A function in Zoom. All attendees will receive a follow-up email with a recording of today's presentation, as well as copies of the slides. And following the module, all attendees are welcome to join our open office hours, where you can ask today's presenter questions about topics covered in the session. And those office hours are held from 11:30 to 1:30 in a separate Zoom meeting where you'll be able to turn on your cameras and ask your questions directly to our instructor today. And I will post the link to register for those office hours in the chat box in case you haven't had a chance to do so already. But in the meantime, let's get things started, and I will turn the floor over to today's presenter, Dion McGee.
Great. Thank you so much, Olivia, for that great and warm introduction. So good morning. Welcome again. Thank you so much for joining today. You are certainly in the right place. I wanted to just give you a little bit of background about who I am and what you can expect today in terms of this great session all about creating memorable social events. So I am CEO of McGee Enterprises. We help companies in terms of managing projects, meetings, and events, and teaching the hospitality industry how to manage through great success. I also own MEBO, which helps entrepreneurs in building their startup companies. The reason why you're here today, I'm also adjunct professor at Temple University. I love all things about education and have been teaching for quite a while, about 15 years, so certainly enjoy that. And finally, I'm founder of OmniPair, which is an online learning platform I mentioned about helping hospitality individuals and professionals to be the very best that they can be. So that's a platform to teach and learn and engage any of our segments in terms of the hospitality industry. So there you have it. So you can see that I hold several certifications. It's evidence that I am passionate and I love all things about weddings, events, meetings, hospitality, tourism, you name it. And then just recently, I am so grateful that I have passed my certification for certified hospitality educator. So that was difficult and challenging, but let me just say, so pleased and humbled to have achieved such certification. So it just lets you know you are in the right place today. Okay, so you're learning from experts in the industry. So don't forget to join us at the office hours at 11:30. Just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to do that. If you don't mind, in the chat window, can you just tell me a little bit about who you are today? Are you a business owner, a restaurant owner, a planner? Maybe you're just someone who just enjoys all things about our industry and you're an enthusiast who just loves what we do, a student supplier, etc. Just if you don't mind, pop in the chat box. That would be great for me to know, because in academia, in the world of education, we always talk about teaching to the middle. So I want to make sure that the content and the information that you're receiving today is going to be invaluable and also enjoyable. All right, so take some time to do that for me, and then I'm going to just come right back to the chat to see who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll definitely move into our content. Now, what you can expect today in terms of an outcome and what we're going to learn together. We're going to review the industry statistics for social events. What does that look like? What are the tools and trends that we're currently using today? Now, there's going to be a fun part of this presentation as well, because I'm going to share with you some of those top trends that are happening today that are absolutely on fire. I'm also going to walk you through from a perspective as a wedding planner or a social event professional, what are the current skill sets required for such? A part of the objective of this session is to also ensure that from a business perspective, if you're looking to enter the business or if you have a business that supports the social events industry, that you are moving through the steps required. And I'm going to share with you my recommendations when you are creating such businesses, or when you're fine tuning or maybe transitioning into the space. And then I'm going to end with COVID-19 planning and preparedness and some additional resources that you might find helpful. All right. So I see the comments coming in today. There are some of you who are starting a new event planning business. Fantastic. I'm interested in topics of entertainment events. Makes sense. We always do this, whether for business, friendship, or pleasure guided. Consulting for nonprofits, fundraising, and events. Remarkable events. Thank you. A small meeting events company to expand into social events. Facilities management. And then we do have another individual is looking to start their business, who's leasing a space to hold space. To start it as a consultant, wanting to add events to offer a small business. Okay, fantastic. So thank you for those comments. Now I know exactly how to engage and present the content. Now let me start by wearing my hat for academia. It's important to know, for the next 40 minutes, questions, comments you have, certainly pop them in the chat. I'm wanting to make sure that you find this very impactful. But I wanted to find at the beginning, what is eventology? It is the new science of human events. So the demand for events that produce measurable outcomes and financial sustainability has created what we call a crossroads of knowledge. And this intersection where creativity meets the science of business has resulted in a new interdisciplinary study that we call eventology. It integrates three really important principles. So as you are moving through the meetings and events, I want you to really understand what those principles are. They are how people learn through events. So think about the training sessions that you attend, just even the social networking engagements. We are learning through the experience of our events. It's also, secondly, how communities are formed through events. So we pull in our communities, and we are either religious worship or military experience, or just in general, whatever the community is, it's usually through an event. And then finally, it is how behavior and thinking is changed for the purpose of achieving defined outcomes through events. So all three things make up what we call this world of new science, the eventology, the science of eventology. Now, just quickly, let's define what is an event, because many times we're confused about what is it, how do we do it? So you're learning from a professor that's teaching you exactly, and you can share with your colleagues and your friends that everything begins with an event. That's what they are in this world. And then they're divided into three different categories, either corporate, nonprofit, or social. So what does that mean? So in corporate, for an example, things such as a corporate meeting, a conference, a product kickoff launch, a corporate kickoff meeting, store grand openings are great examples of such. If we look at, there's nonprofit, of course, nonprofit organizations and their types of events. And then there's thirdly, social, all things personal, weddings, families, birthdays, right? Now, there's also subcategory in social. You may know this. In the hotel industry, it's very, very common, and we call this the Smurf segment. What does Smurf stand for? Do you know what that stands for? If you do, pop it in the chat, but I'm certainly going to share it with you. But this is the division at hotels. They define that, social events are so big that we need to create our own division, our own salespeople who are managing the experience and selling our spaces, our hotel rooms, our convention centers for this kind of industry. Smurf stands for social, military, union, religious, and fraternity groups. So it's social, military, union, religious, and fraternity groups. Okay. I'll just make sure that you get that because it's important to know if you're working with hotel chains that that is the small segment of social. All right. So let's talk a little bit about industry statistics. Who's doing what? This is a great example of a wedding. This was actually my wedding, by the way. Over 100 flowers, and the experience was fantastic. So again, it just lets you know I absolutely love, love, love weddings. My corporate piece of the business that we manage at my company, absolutely love our corporate clients. Don't get me wrong, but our passion is absolutely weddings. So when we talk about, remember the social category, according to the IBIS World 2020 report, the opportunities that are forecast are expected to reach 55 billion, with a small decrease of 7%, what we call the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR. Now, let me ask you, why do you think that this anticipated decrease is happening? Why do you think that the social piece, when we know the corporate category is absolutely growing and continuing to grow, but there is still opportunity for us to do great business in the social industry, to still manage meetings and events and offer our event spaces and et cetera, and consult our clients. But there certainly is a decrease. Do you know what that is? Just give you a moment to put it in the chat session there. And if not, I'm certainly going to share with you our reason and rationale behind why, these industry experts and those who are pushing these financial forecasting are sharing with us why they anticipate that we'll experience this decrease of 7.1%. So COVID has changed the perception of what a social event should look like. That's good, yes. Moving to smaller, more intimate gatherings. Yes, good answers, absolutely. You guys are bright. This is good feedback. During the pandemic, very good reason why. And there are four common ways, and let me just share with you. The first one, most common, is the use of current and new technology. We are in a place of oversaturation of information. The DIY phase, do it yourself. Brides and couples, even people. Sometimes our corporate event teams who hire us, they feel they're the experts in meeting and event professional management, right? And there's so much access to the information and how to do things that maybe they don't need a professional. More people are working from home, doing more research for themselves. Absolutely. Thank you, Val. Great comment. And then absolutely, COVID-19 is driving behavioral changes where large gatherings are becoming a primary discussion that you're having with the guests, with those that are part of the wedding party, with venues and suppliers. So absolutely, we're expecting that there is a decrease, but here is the good news, and thank God there is. There is still opportunity for us to make great revenue, to build our businesses, to do what we do every day. So just wanted to let you know that we can still relax. We're still in a good place. Now, in terms of event participants who attend our events overall, in 2018, over 1.5 billion people attended events in over 180 countries. It is suggested one of the biggest takeaways is that the largest expense is related to travel. So this means for us, if you're in the travel business, if you're a travel agent, if you're at a hotel, if you're offering venue space, if you're thinking about being a travel agent, or if you're an event meeting planning company, it might make sense to add travel agency services as an additional service that you might want to consider. So think about that in terms of travel, that if your business is in that particular area of support, you're going to continue to see the largest amount of growth. Now, according to the Wedding Knot, wedding plans were forced to change last year, obviously, for the majority of couples, including 43% who continued with their ceremony, but decided to add a virtual streaming component, while 5% completely said we will go completely virtual. So couples continue to see value in in-person experiences. If you ask us from a projections point of view, will we go back to venues? Will we go back to real in-person weddings? Absolutely, because only 5% decided to completely transition to virtual. Our couples still feel the value in having those experiences. The good news, though, is if you're having a venue, if we're independent wedding planners, you're looking for outdoor space, offering outdoor space, creating more spaces outdoors is absolutely the way to go, because we have found over the past year now, our numbers are indicating that the use of outdoor spaces have increased revenue by 30% for venues. So something to really think about. Good comment in the chat that the comment in the chat is, I also think that there will be significant turnaround when the pandemic goes away, because people will be ready to hold events and feel comfortable and safe again. Absolutely, you are right. And we will be there to support them. Now, if you ask, what can I make in this industry? What does the money look like? So if you're an employee, the ranges are anywhere between 55 and 75,000. And for companies, the revenue is truly unlimited. So you have the opportunity to make as much money as possible as you are willing to store your bank account. So know that that is good news. Now, as a case study, just to share with you, if you have the opportunity to go search through Forbes.com, they reported this really great article where one event planning company, a young lady that owns Aced Events in New York City, has already reached $1 million in revenue. Oh my God, that's amazing. You know what? I wish that was me. What are you doing to make 1 million? So just note that there are absolutely evidence in the universe that we can make the money that we need to make and be very successful in terms of revenue. So the link is there available for you, the chat. Okay, so take a moment, take a look at that. If you are new in the industry and looking to really engage in the experience, or if you are looking to transition using the skills that you have today. According to the Events Industry Council, over 50% of all event planners have a bachelor's degree and nearly 20% have a master's degree. There are over 10,000 certified meeting professionals, CMPs like myself. So one of the growth areas is virtual events. So therefore, the greater knowledge in this area will help improve your employment opportunities in the future, but also note that you must continue to practice self-improvement and education continuously through education every year. If you ask what are some common certifications that you might want to consider, if you're enthusiastic about learning like I am, you don't have to collect 110 certifications. It's really up to you. But our recommendation is the Certified Wedding Consultant, CWP, the Certified Special Events Professional, the CSEP, the Certified Travel Advisor, the CTA, are just some common certifications. We talked about the CMP, Certified Meeting Professional, a certification that should be there, but just wanted to mention that. Let me define just really quickly the difference between what is a certificate program and a certification. A certificate program is one in which you learn curriculum and you receive a certificate. But certified means that not only do you perhaps go through a curriculum, but you also master a body of knowledge and you move through a pass and fail test or exam. And that allows you then to put credentials behind your name. So think about what you do every day. Is it going to add value to the work that you do? And my mother always said, if you can't get the credentials in front of your name, then get them in back of your name. Okay. So just some recommendations around that. In terms of being ready for business, let's just transition a little bit about you have a business in the space, or you're looking to do business in the space. What are the things that we're doing in terms of a checklist and recommendations to ensure that you're being successful in following the path forward? So there's a great book that's called Start Your Event Planning Business. This is by Entrepreneur. It's available through Amazon.com. It is about 80 pages. It is a great read. I would recommend that you find the book and add it to your resources. But some of the recommendations when you first start in terms of planning your business, you want to look at a business strategy. right? How to create the business plan. I know that we've heard this before, but more importantly, what are the gaps that you can fill in your business? Is there an area of service that is more valuable that you have the expertise to delivering? And are there other support services locally, regionally, state that you can tap into? Second part of business readiness is the setup of your business. So the SBA has a great page and a great resource website around how to find the right structure of your business, how to really set up correctly. Think about, in terms of registering your business, following those applicable laws if you're going to be considered an LLC versus a sole proprietor or a partnership or a corporation. And then also what we found is the most important task in terms of business setup. Who is going to be doing what? What is your staffing and resource plans? Do you have consultants? Are you going to hire them? Do you want full-time people, etc.? So also consider the link below. And don't forget, at the end of this course, a couple of days, you'll receive the actual PowerPoint. So don't have to memorize where to go for the links, but I want to make sure that you can go to this particular resource, the SBA. The second is networking. Makes sense. Consider joining organizations and social networks. A great book for this is called Business Networking, The Survival Guide by Will Kentist. Again, available at Amazon.com. Add this to your resource as well. It is a great read, but it really helps those of us who think that we know what we're doing in networking, how to do it well, or if we're not sure or uncomfortable or timid or it's not our best skill set, how then we engage in the best way. Okay, so that's networking. Next is the RFP and other works. So meaning that most of the work that we as planners, we have to move through an RFP process, request for proposal. That's a proposal submitted by an organization association that we have to respond to. So it's an official process. So in doing that, you can review your local community websites in terms of looking for those opportunities. Look at other industry journals to see what opportunities there are. And just by Googling request for proposals 2022, you'll find that they've published them online and you'll have the opportunity to respond. So definitely consider looking at other resources in terms of getting prepared. And then finally, I'm going to end with the business CQI, continuous quality improvement. What are we doing to continuously evaluate the business? Are we benchmarking our business against other competitors, other industry best practices, looking at growing our business in terms of a strategy plan and revenues, and always looking at the steps in terms of our SOPs, standard operating procedures. All right. So again, a link is here available. Again, the SBA has a great list of resources for us to follow. So let's talk more about weddings. All right. The social, when we say social, remember the category, it's all things personal, which is family reunions, weddings, birthdays, but it's also most commonly known for weddings. So in terms of the wedding professional, we find that there's this evolution of time. And in the 1850s, just so that you're aware, I'm using again my academia hat, right? So that you're probably asking, why are you sharing me the information? Because I want you to be very inspired, but also knowledgeable about the history of our segment in terms of weddings. But in 1855, the individual who planned weddings was the actual men in a religious institution. They were called the undertaker of weddings. And it was a non-traditional role and just helping kind of what they kind of thought there were no rules, nothing was simply made up. But then we move into the 1930s and women argued that we need to have a more professional way to move through the experience. So we introduced the words of the wedding consultant. And a good example as a wedding consultant is at a retail sales store, like a bridal salon, when you go pick your wedding dress, right? And the wedding dress, they say, oh, we're your wedding consultant. Well, that's just a wedding consultant. But that was the introduced concept in 1930. And then we moved through 1970, which is more traditional. We're doing pretty much all things that a client would ask us to do, and we're becoming more knowledgeable in the field. And then finally, where we are today is more consultative. So let me explain a little bit about what does it mean that what we're doing in the categories. So wedding consultant planning, one element. Think about that bridal salon, the dress. They're saying, oh, come on in. Happy to have you. I am your wedding consultant. Well, you're not really the wedding consultant. You're really the wedding dress consultant, but I digress. So that's one ideal. Then there's the traditional wedding planner, something where I started at in terms of planning the entire experience or maybe a particular area, but very skilled, but skilled in a few of the areas in terms of knowledge. And then finally, consultative wedding consultant, more consultative now with technology, looking to manage the entire experience. It's our larger portions of the wedding experience, very knowledgeable of all wedding events. So you're looking to be more full service and consultative, that where can I fit in to help you meet your goals? Because what we're finding is that even with not just weddings, but other kinds of social events, our clients have already done some of the homework. So we want to move forward and consult them. Now, let me just ask you, in terms of you being at a social event, and put this in the chat if you don't mind, have you ever had a bad experience at a social event? And how did it make you feel? Well, take a look at this.
Will you have Keith to be your wedded husband, to live together in the covenant of marriage? Will you love him, comfort him, honor and keep him, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others, be faithful to him as long as you both shall live? The rings, please.
Oh God! No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Are you okay?
Oh my God!
Oh my God, how unfortunate is that? I mean, has that ever happened to you? Have you had experiences where you remember that experience? So I want to introduce what is wedding trauma. Wedding trauma is exactly that. And thank you for your comment. Yes, but not quite like that. Wedding trauma are those activities or events that have a lasting, profound negative impact on not just the couple, but families and guests for years to come. So, like in the example in the video that we saw today, that is creating wedding trauma. And it is going to be something that people will think about for years, of course. Think about when we're at weddings and things like, oh my God, that dress is so beautiful. We're going to remember the dress. Or, that cake was horrible. Who made that cake? They should never be hired again in terms of a baker. Another example of wedding trauma. And why this is important for you and I to remember is our job as event professionals is to remove wedding trauma along the planning process. So what are those factors that contribute to wedding trauma? They are as follows. There's a good example of, for example, finances. There's not enough money to plan the experience, so it creates trauma. Or there's too much money in different categories and we're not allocating it correctly. Secondly is family. That family creates trauma. They're arguing. They're not on the same page. Mom wants something different than what dad wants. And then aunts have to get involved. And then Johnny has an alcohol issue and you can't have him a part of the wedding party. It creates trauma. Third is time. Not enough time. We want to plan a wedding within 30 days. Is that going to be enough time? Potentially no. Fourth is preferences. So you have couples who have different variations of, I want black, blue, and white. I want 600 people. But then the other couple or the bride is saying, I don't want that many people. I want a small, intimate wedding. Preferences. And then finally, vendors. Hiring those suppliers who are not good in what they do. And we need to be able to vet them. Also creates trauma. So how do we avoid and reduce the wedding trauma? Well, there are 3 common pitfalls when you are thinking through the experience, when you're talking with your clients, when you're consulting, or when you're planning your own wedding experience or just social experience. And that is, 1, we want to screen our professionals. We want to ensure that they are the right people for the job. There's so many times we don't ask for, what are your referrals? And not only asking them, but calling the referrals. So in terms of professionals and suppliers, are we screening the right people? Secondly, are we adhering to a budget? So many times we don't start with a budget, or there's not an adequate budget. I will share with you, for most times, wedding budgets never start out as they seem. They always increase over time. So we want to be sure that we have a firm budget in advance. And thirdly, setting a clear expectation with all parties. That includes the family, the friends, the suppliers. So making sure that people know, nope, there's only 100 people invited, or we're not doing dinner, or we are not doing alcohol. So having very clear expectations, really important. So 3 best ways that we know or recommend how to reduce that trauma pitfalls. Now, remember I talked about the skill sets of a wedding event professional? Well, in our business, there are 5 core skill sets. This is exciting, that we should be able to master in terms of knowing the industry well. And that is the 5 that you see before you. I'm going to define them just slightly. But if you want more information in detail, specifically about tasks and ideas, etc., be sure to join us at Temple University and maybe consider being a part of some of the other courses that we offer, because we walk through these in more detail. Now, in terms of knowledge, it really is at a professional level, your general understanding of the wedding industry. And if you see before you, these are all of the common top knowledge areas that we should really be aware of. Now, you don't have to be professionals. And by far, this isn't all the wedding elements, but these are the top 10 with the top 12 wedding elements that you should be aware of. If you notice, virtual elements has been added. Very, very key because of COVID. So now we need to be experts in how to manage the virtual experience. Secondly is process management. In summary, it really means how we are coordinating through the wedding elements, how we're working with our clients, how we're using that knowledge to process and move them through the experience in terms of planning. Okay. Third is critical thinking. So high level, what are the levels in terms of moving things through, making sure that they make sense in terms of your wedding elements. So knowing the critical thinking piece, understanding not just their knowledge, but how you apply that in being strategic is using critical thinking skills. All right. Fourth is leadership, all about building relationships, but it also includes on-site management at your wedding and the experience or the event itself. Are you managing through leading by example and being a great leader in terms of teams and suppliers? And then finally is creativity. Are you creative? Do we offer the ideas and suggestions to exceed a client's expectations? It's creativity. All right. So in recap and review, knowledge, process management, critical thinking, and leadership. Notice that creativity is in the middle. And there's a reason why creativity is in the middle. And I know you don't know the answer, but you can certainly guess why it's in the middle. It's in the middle for 2 reasons. One is we're hired by those folks because we are perceived as being creative, right? Being able to bring an experience. Oh my God, I got to hire this guy because this D.L. McGee, because he's so good at doing these weddings. But it's also, secondly, it is the core skill set that we lack the most in terms of professionals. So we have to do a little more due diligence in being creative, because we're not born as creative people. We like to think we're creative, but at times we need a little bit more support around that. So give that some thought. Those are 5 things that, if you do them well today, great. But just note, in the wedding and events industry, when we're producing a social experience, we want to be sure that we are capturing the top of those 5 skill sets. Now let's talk about, remember those trends that we chatted about a little bit. So let's move right into this. So the state of social events. So 27% of most corporate event budgets are dedicated to audiovisual now, which is more lighting, more technical, which is also including more of our maybe virtual event space, but it's more around ensuring that there is the aspect of bringing in lighting. 76% of these planners will use their own space. So if it's a corporate space, if it's something that they have partnered with in terms of locations that are local in the community. And then 30% of planners are considering the biggest challenge when pivoting to a virtual component. So this stated the whole ideal of social events, according to eventmb.com, references that we are still absolutely struggling, but the struggle does become easier as the pandemic decreases. All right. Will virtual events continue to stay? Absolutely. But they will not be as much in force in terms of volume that we are seeing and experiencing today. And that is something that most event professionals or those that are academically or writing these trends are forecasting for the next couple of years. So here's some great ideas what's happening in terms of, social events. One of the common trends that you're going to find is the whole ideal of a social law. You may have heard this before. I also indicated for you that now just a little, some corporations are using some of these now ideas as well. They're intended primarily for social events, but corporations are finding that they're just as impactful. And this idea suggests that taking the audio and visual experience by creating a social media electronic wall, a platform that's going to display comments, feedback, real-time information at an event. This is helpful because when we're having a virtual component, then we can see what others are saying when they're not attending in person. All right. In addition, another great trend is all about gamification. Have you heard what gamification is? So according to Stage Event, if you're hosting a conference or other corporate event, including gamification is one of the best ways to engage virtual attendees and keep them interested in the event concept. So the basic mechanisms of virtual event gamification includes ensuring that you assign point values, having engagement of elements, and having features that are bringing people in so they can participate, giving them a call to action. So if you're doing this today, consider gamification. Great website for this is stageedge.com. Okay. Now, another great trend is the ideal of guest welcome boxes. So according to the Knot, already couples have started to work with the pros to design welcome boxes. So this experiential alternative to the welcome bag. So the concept behind these boxes is to safely house all event necessary items that are in one place, like personalized hand sanitizers, masks, programs, details, even take away home favors, allowing the guests to experience the warmth of being welcomed into the wedding weekend. So that's very common. Next is a tinted decor. So as more outdoor weddings are taking place around the world, there's a huge surge in interest in wedding tents and mood lighting to bring a romantic and airy ambiance to every single occasion. So couples are turning to us as planners and venues for options to create elegant and whimsical tent options, as well as potential lighting techniques that can help create that ambiance that they're looking for. The next trend is mini d'oeuvres, hors d'oeuvres, which is substituted for mini d'oeuvres. So limiting the wait time for one benefit to this 2021 wedding trend is so popular. Guests will be thrilled to grab either like a canned Moscow Mule or a mouth-watering pre-made mini cocktail or a mini item that is easy to pick up, that's in single serve, easy to go. So this is certainly very interesting. It also includes a unique way to display your ready-to-make cocktails or to-go drinks. So something to think about. And then, of course, we talked about this whole ideal of virtual, right? Mason jars, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. Great suggestion. So we talked about the whole virtual engaging. How do we virtually engage our folks? So this is absolutely important. And we're finding one of the benefits of having a virtual component and a social event is to increase reach and then to allow us to reach more diverse audiences. It is also, in terms of a top advantage, it's cost effective, it allows for deeper engagement, and allows for us to really look at data behind the scenes and build trust within our communities in terms of offering also a safe place for people to be. So some examples of virtual methods that you may have heard of: the virtual escape room, game night, online workouts, magic shows. These are just some great examples of how folks are incorporating these virtual ideas into their experience. Now, we touched a little bit on the whole idea of cocktails, but in addition to cocktails, it's such a wonderful opportunity and a way to present your signature cocktails, that we can also present maybe the ingredients and ship them or share with our attendees virtually how they can participate in our experience by asking them to prepare the cocktail at home in the comfort of where they are. And they can perhaps grab, these drinks in person and walk away from your experience and then continue to celebrate for a few days thereafter. So talk about improving or reducing virtual trauma, right? Always having something to drink is probably a good thing. All right, so that's one of the ideas around corporate cocktails. Now, also in terms of diversity, it matters. And it even matters even more that the pandemic was not only the event that impacted the world, because of the current climate in terms of the political world and movements that are being launched within our countries and globally. We know that there is a need to be intentional and genuine with a commitment to diversity when we are experiencing and celebrating and meeting with people, right? So one of the examples is to offer diversity amongst your food and beverage. Absolutely, very key, right? So something for you to consider. Now, another trend that we're finding pretty common, and this is not necessarily the most positive trend, but several countries, when COVID does allow us to participate, because when COVID does end, that is, there are restrictions around when we are looking at accommodations at hotels and resorts. They are restricting, if you're not married, for example, you must have separate bedrooms. So we want to also think about that. That is also becoming a bigger trend these days. So definitely keep that in mind when you are planning to experience. For example, the Islamic law prohibits unmarried couples from living together. So the same rule applies to sharing a hotel room. So in theory, hotels should also not call you a cab or help you book a tour in which you would be alone with your partner. So I just wanted to bring those examples forward that you are considering them in the planning process. All right. So let's talk all about weddings. All right. Just to give you just a quick idea of the state of where we are today, the wedding in 2021. So in terms of our numbers in 2021, we're roughly, again, a $2 billion industry, still doing very, very well, according to the market summary research of the RealReport.com. The spend is about $24,000 per wedding experience. Just a caveat, that is not in major metropolitan areas, such as New York City. The cost of weddings are much more higher, but the average across the country is about $24K. So the total sales is about, and let me just go back, 2 million weddings, number of weddings, that is 2.4 million, and 60 billion is our total spend. All right, so I just want to confirm that. Again, suggesting that we are in the right place. So what we see in terms of averages, the number of guests are about 170. The average wedding spend, again, this is averaging all things weddings, about 20, reduced from the 24 that we saw below. So and that's because of COVID. So we're down to 20. We expect to be at the 24 over the next couple of years. The average guest, 107. Our guests are traveling usually by car for the most part. They're not taking advantage of air and rail. Popular season is April through October. And then the age group is 25 to 29. Isn't that interesting? So our younger adults are getting married. So that's makes sense to us, right? Doesn't not discount the fact that others are getting married, but we want to be sure to target that age group. And then food and beverage is again continuing to be the most expensive wedding element for sure. All right. So if you're in the food and beverage space, fantastic. Other trends in terms of weddings, weddingwire.com reports that even during the circumstances, nearly half of couples getting married had to make changes to their vendor teams due to COVID-19, with the majority adjusting their vendor scope by 77%. So the use of also technology, this has resulted in a greater reliance on going to those tools that we use electronically through the planning process. And 1/3 of couples used online chats to communicate with their vendors while whether scheduling video conferences, which simply means that most couples hired their vendors during this season without even meeting them in person prior to the wedding day. So this is good news for us as suppliers and planners in the business. Also venues. In terms of honeymoons, more than 70% of married couples did plan to go on some type of post-wedding vacation due to the impact of COVID. They've had on the ability to travel. It is no surprise that they were forced to make adjustments to their initial wedding plans. So those costs are still between $4,800 to $2,200, depending on airplane or car. And again, you notice 43% of those planning honeymoons changed their location due to COVID-19. Okay. Now you ask question, what is the leading wedding destination for weddings in general? You may already know this. They are absolutely the top 5 on the list that you see there before you. But there is one that is absolutely the most popular wedding destination. You'll probably guessed it. It's Las Vegas, Nevada. Why do you think that is? It is because it has the most number of places people can get married in terms of like wedding chapels, etc. So that's why it's still the leading wedding destination. So if you are wanting to become an expert in these destinations, perhaps you're a travel agency, an expert, these are some considerations for you. Now let's talk about weddings really quickly. So one of the common trends, according to the Knot, couples are abandoning the ideal of the traditional large wedding cake. They're moving to this trend of having singled cakes on display, which I think is quite brilliant and beautiful. So certainly something for you to consider in the planning process. There's also the use of bright and fresh colors, the use of outdoor lounges, bringing in the inside to the outside, couches and lounge chairs, the use of these bright and fresh colors. You've seen mismatched brides dresses, but suddenly coordinators and planners are really going crazy to mismatch the colors and making them bright and vibrant during this age of COVID. We want it to be exciting and fresh and different. So another trend is called sequel weddings. And this is on the horizon where it essentially means we wed now and we party later. So naturally, this trend has been a direct result of the pandemic, but it certainly gives a couple the best of both worlds, an intimate micro wedding ceremony that's followed by a large party in the future. It makes sense. Then there's the pentimate wedding. You may have heard of this before, but it's more personalized. It's a common top trend. It's a personalized and intimate micro wedding. It was born out of some of the restrictions that we've seen that have been placed on couples around the world. So some are choosing to postpone, but some are moving forward, opting for a more relaxed affair with a guest list of 30 or under. Very, very intimate. And these weddings trend to be a fashion of formal and informal with a more expansive per head budget than available with the larger guest list. So the focus is on the guest experience. So real thought is being put into the guest journey as part of the wedding experience in general. Some examples are, this ideal of 7-course meals. So really paying special attention to the experience for our guests. The next is tech strong DIY. We've certainly talked about this, but with social distancing measures and group size mandates aplenty, everyone turns to technology for human interaction. And from virtual birthday parties to video brunches, we have saw these social gatherings go digital, and weddings included. So again, Zoom, Evites, great examples to use when you are trying to go virtual. And the next is a brunch wedding. So as more weddings are held according to the knot, couples are taking advantage of daylight and sun-kissed experiences, including this ideal of lush garden brunch parties and mouth-watering brunch boxes under airy tents. I'm getting all hungry now. So the best part for guests is having the option for them to continue the party through the day or retiring home after an eventful celebration for a delightful late afternoon nap. Doesn't that sound good? So think about the whole idea of brunch weddings and maybe offering them to your clients as another possible option. So in summary, here are some tools in terms of technology. I've categorized them for you by the couple in white that they're using today. Most common top trend is Zoom and Google Meet, followed by the Knot, Wedding Wire, Appy Couple, Social Tables, Canva, and Planning.wedding. From a planner perspective, if we are planning, if we are supporting consulting, a venue, whatever we're doing in terms of offering a service or product, other resources you may want to consider is Honeybooked, Planning Pod, Owl Planner, and Planner Lounge, okay? Just some suggestions around the use of technology. And absolutely, there are so many more in the space that are available to us as well. So let me just take a little time and just reference at the close of our session, a little bit around the pandemic planning. So I want to be sure that we have some resources that we can use and that we can drive to how we can improve this experience overall, because we know that our events industry has been profoundly impacted due to the pandemic. But the good news is it is coming back fantastic. So we just want to be patient and just note there will be ample opportunity for us to continue to drive great revenue and be paid for what we think we deserve. But in the meantime, I want to make sure that you know, according to the CDC, I'm going to make sure that you have the website. We want to be sure to understand the guiding principles, and the gatherings defined as a planned outdoor spontaneous event, indoors, outdoors, with a small number of people participating, or a large number of people that are also participating. So we won't go through these in detail, but I want to make sure again that I reference you and drive you to the cdc.gov. Also, there's a great 9-minute video on YouTube where I walk our event professionals through what does it mean in terms of the CDC guiding principles. So take a moment. We're going to put this in the chat as well. You can Google D.L. McGee, COVID planning, what have you, preparedness. You'll see the website, or you'll see the actual video. So take an opportunity. It's only 9 minutes, but it really gives you an ideal of things that we should be doing in terms of maintaining, healthy event environments. What does that look like in terms of physical barriers and cleanliness, how we are moving through operations of our events, and how we are being successful. So I also would recommend the additional resource. That's, again, cdc.gov. There's also eventscouncil.org has a wonderful website around how we manage, especially venues and hotels, and their processes and their cleaning processes and their inspections and their guest experience. So do take some time to research that. I find it incredibly invaluable, even if it's not something that you find interesting or you feel it's important to you. I would absolutely suggest that you kind of scan the information, because knowledge is powerful, and then you'll also be experienced around how we can prepare. One other thing you may want to know when you are planning events and venues, when they're setting up to ensure that they are safe and it's going to be a better experience, we're going to have to provide evidence that we have either attended training or we have programs that confirm that there's evidence in which the programs are in place and processes at restaurants, organizations, meetings, and even as professionals that we have the skill set. So you should start now and look at those resources in trying to learn in terms of the certificates, certificate programs, et cetera. Okay, so just offer that to you. Other resources along the way, just in summary, certainly visit us at Temple University. We look forward to providing you additional guidance as you move through your journey. I own Eventi Focus, which is a project management software and framework and training specific to events and how we manage through that. And that's eventifocus.com. A lot of the resources today were also presented by eventmanagerblock.com. Really consider you to take a look at that as well. Very good information. And then omnipair.com is the learning platform that I talked to you about today. If you're wanting to learn more about the standards in terms of being a meeting professional or certified, take a look at that. So I know we talk all things about social and meetings and corporate, so our focus today is more about social, but hey, if you can do a corporate event well, you can do a social event world and vice versa. Other resources to add to your library of information, of course, is from today's information. I have for you the special events book presented by Wiley, the 8th edition, Wedding Planning for Dummies. I refer to it all the time. Consider that. There's also Emily Post's Wedding Etiquette. It's actually written by Peggy Post, her daughter. And then, of course, OmniPair CP Knowledge Bootcamp found at omnipair.com. So just wanted to give you some additional resources that you can find today. Now, I'm very close to my time today, which is right at 11 o'clock. But in summary, I hope that you've enjoyed the review of our industry statistics. We're not able to go through everything today. Can't train you on all things there is to be the best social event planner, but you kind of hopefully know that you're doing it right, or hopefully I have inspired you to continue doing the work that you do every day. We looked at the skill sets for professionals that are required, as we are learning to officially engage our skill sets and be critiqued for that particular skill sets in terms of knowledge. I've introduced wedding trauma and how we kind of manage through that with some top wedding trends that you saw today. And then we finalize with the COVID-19 planning preparedness and additional resources. So again, thank you. If you want more information about the Event Leadership Executive Certificate Program, feel free to go to the link here that you see in the chat, or you can reach out to our fantastic Executive Director, which is Ira Rosen. His information is there for you today. He is a fantastic leader that we are just so grateful to partner with at Temple University. I'll also leave you my contact information. So feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Let's become friends. Love to network. It's really important. You never know when opportunities are going to be available to any of us in this world. So please feel free to send an email if you'd like. Reach out to us via our toll-free office number here. Or again, find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. So with that being said, I know that we are at the end of this session and we do have the opportunity for additional questions that you may have today. And so I'll hand it over to Olivia.
Thank you so much, Dion. Yes, if anyone has any questions, now is your opportunity to type anything in the chat box, or you can use the Q&A function. Just a reminder, everybody will receive a follow-up email that has a recording of the presentation and all of the slides. So if you were late or you missed something, you want to go back, you'll have that resource to review. And I did post a link for a survey in the chat box that we would really love for everyone to take. It's really useful information for the SBDC. And yeah, we would really appreciate that.
So thank you, Carl, for your comment. I'm humbly grateful. Thank you. The slides, images, and contents are fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm taking my experience from the Certified Hospitality Education course. I have learned a lot. It was a hard course. So I'm using those techniques that I've learned. So thank you so much for the feedback. Thanks for the great seminar. Thank you so much. How much is the training course and what is the time commitment? So the training courses vary. At Temple University, you can pay as you go, or you can pay for the suite of all of the courses at one time. All the other resources are just online platforms, and they vary. $295, $195, $75, up to who knows. So just take a moment to just research, what those costs are individually. Okay. What was the biggest challenge when first, and Olivia, not to take your thunder here, so just jumping right on in. So, what was your first biggest challenge when first starting your business? Good question. So, I'll take this as it reads, and I know Carl has an open question that Olivia, I'll know you'll present that to us. But one of the things that I found common in general is that individuals and those who have been in our business for a very, very long time, those who have very successful third-party event, meeting, wedding planning companies, they were not willing to share information. They were not willing to reach out and guide and really just kind of share what they've learned, what they haven't learned, bad, good, or indifferent. And I found that really, really challenging. So I had to look at other resources to learn and engage. And this is why one of the reasons why I'm very clear about when I teach or when I speak or when I consult, or if you even just pick up the phone, I'm going to share with you all the information that I am aware of. Nothing is taboo. So I found that to be an issue. And the second is that most important, my mom used to say, have different streams of revenue. Because just because you think you want to do weddings and you start a business out just for weddings, then you're missing opportunity for galas and nonprofits and so many other revenue streams that can help you also help clients or people who really need your service. So I had to rethink my business probably every couple of years. Now we're doing weddings. Let's do family reunions. Let's switch gears, or, let's don't do so many weddings. Or, hey, we can do weddings, but I know that, for example, we don't do on-site wedding or weddings where, for example, we're hired to go on site. We don't just do weddings that we go on site. We have to plan your experience from beginning to end because my brand is more important. So things you learn through the process, but those are the two things I found very challenging. Okay. Thanks. This is good. The chat is continuing to grow.
We have one that says, can people get certifications from various organizations?
Absolutely. Look at all those I have. Right? I mean, they're just tremendous. And people ask, are you just trying to collect these credentials, Dia? Let me just say, the very first credential I started, I fell in love with education. So absolutely. One is through MPI. The other is through the Travel Institute. The other is through the Meeting Professionals Institution, Project Management Institute. There's so many of them. Absolutely. Think about what are the credential or certification is going to drive you to greater success and allow you to be passionate about the work that you do every day. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, let's see. Let's look from, other than a lot of the really great trends that you mentioned throughout the presentation, there's a question here that says, do you have insights on what participants are really looking for these days and what guests are really, really liking?
Yeah, in summary, what I found is, in earlier days, couples were not sensitive to the guest experience. And that has always been very common for weddings. But because of the pandemic, it has made couples, and not just in the wedding piece, but event professionals, event owners, but more specifically couples to rethink their plans and be very sensitive and empathetic, right, to their guests. They may not want to come to your wedding because you have a lot of people. Some people are just, they don't want to do it. They're scared, they're freaked out. It's just is not going to happen. So I have found that the sensitivity has become very popular, which then impacts everything else, meaning that they're open to change, they're open to listen. This whole idea of small, intimate weddings really popular. Remember, we talked about the sequel wedding, where the ideal is to have a short, intimate experience, wed now and then party later. And so they're having yet another experience. So that is absolutely very common that we have found with our wedding clients is they're listening, they're engaging, they're making the experience smaller, but they're also being very thoughtful in the process along the way.
Looks like there's a question there from Denise. Do you have a preferred project management platform?
Good question. We use, again, the Eventy Focus platform, eventyfocus.com. It is in its premiere as a project management software that will be attached to it. But internally, we do use the standard documents of Excel, etc. There are some other things that are available in the world, Monday. There are other project management systems, absolutely. But we are creating our very own that we are launching to the event industry. So to your point, there are several out there. Asana, I mean, I can go on and on and on. Cvent, what's great, what is going to be meaningful for you is the challenge for us. We find that there are some things within each of these systems, they work, but there's not anything that is collectively beneficial. So we're kind of designing our own, and I'm happy to share with you down the line when that is available. And again, training is currently available now of how we kind of move the processes using the tool itself. So good stuff. When we plan to launch, sometime end of this year, ideally. So, but as of today, the training is absolutely available. You're welcome to join that if you found that's valuable. The ideal of Eventy Focus is taking the traditional project management that we know of, in the world of project management, and then events, tying all of the events, industry best resources to give you one place. And the good news about that is once you decide in terms of project management, you don't have to stay in events. You can go project manage a medical experience, right? Or project manage an IT project. So we've kind of taken the information and allowed it to be more relevant, more importantly, but also one place shopping that's globally recognized in general. Okay. Thank you for the comment. Great. I know Carl had a comment too. I don't know if you saw that, Olivia.
Oh yes, it was back on your social media slides, but I'm not sure which one that is. There was an unfamiliar
social media. Is that, maybe it's gamification, not sure. So the goal was it was just one of the platforms. German sounding name. Yes, I'm not sure where we have that, but yeah, it could be, yes, but it might just be a platform. I'll take a look at that. But thank you for pointing that. Oh, there it is. Okay.
After Vimeo.
Oh, yes. Yay. Okay, thank you for finding that. Thanks, Carl. Anyone else today?
And I will also repost the link for the Zoom office hours. Again, those start at 11:30, and it's a normal Zoom meeting. So we let about 3 to 4 people in at a time, and you can unmute yourself and ask any questions you might have that are sort of pertaining to your specific situation or your business. And Dion will answer those live. So if that's something you're interested in, you can register at that link I just posted in the chat box. And also they run until 1:30. So if you need to go run and do something, but you come back around 12:30 and you want to jump in, we will be there and happy to answer your questions. But in the meantime, Dion and I are going to stick around for just a couple more minutes for any lingering questions. But if anyone needs to get on with their day, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope to see you at some other future temple events.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.